They told us the oceans were walls of silence, deep, dark, and empty, a void without end. For 10,000 years we stood on the shoreline, turned our backs on the horizon, refused to pretend that humanity never sailed, never dreamed, never wondered, that cultures grew lonely like islands alone. But the gyres kept turning, the trade winds still calling, and the old maps were written in salt and in stone. Oceans are arteries, not walls between us, highways of courage where the brave always meet. From the first Paleolithic canoe on the water to the last star-guided raft crossing the deep. We are mariners, children of wind and of current, one single people who refuse to stay still. The silence is breaking, the dogma is falling, the earth has been speaking through every wave's thrill. Cedar fleets rounded the Cape long before Caesar followed the Canaries where the current runs west. Skin boats of the north rode the same endless river that carried the Norse to the vineyards and rest. Sweet potato spoke in the same tongue in two words. Chicken bones whispered of voyages done. Pyramids rose where the same stars were watching. Serpents and feathers told tales of the sun. Oceans are arteries, not walls between us, highways of courage where the brave always meet. From the first Paleolithic canoe on the water to the last star-guided raft crossing the deep. We are mariners, children of wind and of current, one single people who refuse to stay still. The silence is breaking, the dogma is falling, the earth has been speaking through every wave's thrill. They built empires of fury on never before us, called contact a crime against science's law. But maize crossed the water, tobacco left traces. Jade mirrors remembered the faces they saw. Inside the Americas, rivers were highways. Andean roads wove like a thread through the sky. Quetzalcoatl sailed east on his serpent raft promise. The ocean was never a question of why. No more sealed laboratories, no more convenient void, no more manifest stories that history employed. The past is not static, it flows like the tide, and every horizon was meant to be tried. We are not prisoners chained to our shorelines. We are the question the sea always knew. One human heartbeat that crossed every ocean. One ancient promise that still rings true. Oceans are arteries, not walls between us. Highways of courage where the brave always meet. From the first Paleolithic canoe on the water to the last star-guided raft crossing the deep. and the earth sings again through every wave's
Greetings, Earthling.
Good evening and welcome to the Roundtable episode 14. I believe that Jason will not be with us tonight. He might appear, I don't know, but he's rather occupied. And so I welcome Rick and Vince. How are you?
Well, I am good. How about you, Vince?
Hey, I'm good too, thanks. Today I went kayaking out on the ocean and kayaked across to Sea Island, and there were a lot of sea anemones and jellyfish around all over the beaches, and the sea
And you were
anemones.
barefoot.
Yeah, I was barefoot and got
Not a
some.
great combination.
Well, I didn't step on them,
Oh,
but
okay.
But what were there? I didn't get it.
sea anemones are what they're called.
They're
Oh, the ones
stinging
that
sea
sing?
creatures.
Okay. Because some don't sting, that's why I was asking. So.
Oh, these do.
Mm.
And that part of the ocean also has man of war, Portuguese men of war.
Man of War, yes. So tell us, who has a story for us today?
Well, let me see. I shared a Facebook entry that was about a bunch of supposedly Roman helmets dug up in a garden plot in Pennsylvania. Of course, it was published on April 1st, and the photo showed helmets that were not Roman but were Corinthian,
Yes.
dozens of them. So I'm going to guess that there was no real meat in that story.
Hmm.
However, I did find another story yesterday that had been published back back in the middle of March, and it was about the supposed purported suggested burial place. I'm sorry, not burial place, birthplace of Queen Guinevere. And they have in the actual ancient Welsh records, they have Guinevere named with the Cymry spelling, of course, uh, as having lived in the mid to late fourth, mid to late fifth century, mid to late 400s,
Hmm.
which would be about right for King Arthur the First. So there's some formal history movement in that direction, perhaps. We'll see what happens with that.
You're muted, Vince.
Oh, okay. I have a slideshow here about Kokia mounds. If I could review some of these slides and go over it.
Sure.
Please do.
Okay. So this is the slideshow I gave for the Houston Gem and Mineral Society, and initiated this back in the time when I volunteered at Cahokia. And well, Cahokia is opening up again in June or July of this year, so it's exciting that this slide shows the Cassie Schaefer tablet, the Birdman tablet, and these are the Rogan plates. Rogan plates were made of copper, and they have similar Birdman symbolism on them. But these tablets all show like a Birdman symbol, or depiction of someone wearing bird regalia with a winged being. Um, the Kokia Mounds site was was always um, something that had been it had been tried to be. They were trying to get it preserved for many years. Fred Ramey used to live there, and he had petitioned for many years to get it preserved. and it was going to be completely removed for railroad fill before he was successful in having it preserved. And it used to look like like this. There were trees all over it. Um, this was around the time of the World's Fair in St. Louis in the early 1900s, and they had built buildings on it at some point, and many many houses were built around it.
So, but they thought it was a natural hill. That's why they built the houses there, or
Yeah, initially they thought it was a natural hill. They didn't they didn't admit or acknowledge that it was an Indian mound for many years, and they thought it was just somehow naturally formed, and then finally it was, I guess it was acknowledged that this was an Indian mound. I mean, because they took solid cores through the mound with soil borings, and they found basket loading throughout the mound from top to bottom. And at one point, they noticed a stone structure in the middle. They hit the stone structure in the mound when they were drilling in directional drilling to put a drain line in. They were trying to integrate a drain for the water to drain out of the mound, and they hit the stone core of the mound. So this is the largest pyramid in the world. Literally, it has the largest base of any pyramid.
It has a larger footprint than the Great Pyramid.
not the tallest, but the biggest in footprint.
Correct.
Right.
And not the
And
heaviest either. But
but is it the stone that you said that they hit? Was it the chamber or just the stone to create the pyramid
well,
itself?
nobody excavated it. They just hit stone and said we hit stone, and then they moved on.
Right. They hit the stone. The directional drill operator said it felt like cobblestones, big chunks of granite or cobblestones that were 2 feet in diameter or so. And he said when he was drilling into this mound with his directional drill bit, it was bouncing around wildly and then it broke off. So the drill bit is still in the mound. And as he retrieved the drill, I mean I guess apparatus to the drill bit was left in the mound behind, left behind in there. So it's still there to this day.
Oh,
And
it is
so,
my contention, since we stopped, all right, I'm going to interrupt you. It is my contention that the builders of that mound intended for it to be flooded the whole time.
yeah,
Just saying.
I think you're right because the water. I mean, it was holding it together for this long. I mean, I think that they did this intentionally. They wanted it
Well,
to.
also, as we know from finding bodies that have been in water for 6 or 7 thousand years, it preserves them better than air does.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Anaerobically, and I mean, I think you're right. It's. I mean, it's intentionally built the way it was, and it's lasted this long. I don't think we could do any better. You know, with even with our best, best science, like making something that lasts that long without deteriorating would be an amazing feat. And they use sod block construction, inverted sod blocks, the same way they use in European burrows and barrows. The mounds in Europe use that same type of inverted sod block construction on their facings. And and see, this is a picture of how the railroad was actually building a spur up to the mound with the intention of hauling it all away. But the luckily Ramey stopped it.
And what period of time was that? I'm guessing 1870.
Yeah, 1870s, 1880s, all the way through 1910. And you see, they had built this
Do you know
railroad.
who was in charge of both USGS and the Bureau of Ethnicity through the 1870s and 80s?
Yeah, Charles Rao.
Uh-uh.
Oh,
He
who?
was he was the first director, but the Bureau of Ethnicity was founded and run by Major John Wesley Powell, who was also the second director of USGS.
Oh,
And so he could tell the railroads by USGS. He had the power to say, yes, you can put that route there. Oh, I don't like that one. I want you to go over here another 100 feet and destroy that mound. And I can show you at least half a dozen examples of how he did exactly that.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and you're right. He did. He targeted mounds, and they went after them purposefully to destroy them and use the soil. Just about all the mounds in St. Louis itself were destroyed, except for one that
Yes.
remains today.
Yeah, and there were hundreds.
Yeah.
And does this Cahokia Mound, does it has any signs, any mentions of anyone seeing an entry
Anyone seeing an entry? You mean
or a
like
possible
No.
chamber?
in the mound?
Yes.
Well, it had a round top mound on the top terrace of the top mound. So it had been built in stages, and then round top mounds are usually this was been something added later on after it was completed. But as far as making an entry like into the mound, like an earth lodge type of thing, no, not that I know of. I mean, that
But
hasn't
there
been
was also a platform on top of it, a flat platform before they built the round top or
right.
conical. It wasn't even conical. I don't know what you call it, hemispherical.
Right, there was a platform on top of it and a big building on top of the mound. They said the building
Right.
was about 100 feet by 80 feet, and it had
The
a
floor of that building was roughly 128 feet above base ground.
yes, and it was they had a big post. Like they said, the cedar wood post was used in the front of the mound that would have been even taller than the building, almost like a totem or I guess a pillar just built on top of the mound, on top in front of the building. So the structural building was thought to be the chief's residence. And this is an actual picture of the mound when it had been excavated. Back in 2007, the site underwent a excavation. They called it an emergency preservation effort to try to stop the slumping, and they decided to take backhoes and dig it up. And as they were digging it up, they discovered all these layers of colored soil all across the side of the mound. They excavated about 30,000 cubic feet from the side of the mound, and in each layer of fill, there were alternating colors. There was white, red, blue, black, uh, brown, all the different colors of soil alternating in thickness and composition all throughout the mountain construction.
Is it Cahokia one of those places that was built on soil that it's not local? That people were
Yes,
bringing in
The mound
baskets?
is, but the surrounding terrain is mostly natural, mostly native.
Native.
But Monk's Mound, the big mound, what did we figure out? I think it's something like 19 different sources.
yes. There was these sources were brought in and apparently non-local because this is an alluvial floodplain from the Mississippi River. None of the soil that was used in the mound was from that, and it had to have been brought in from elsewhere.
The
And
archaeologists claim that the puddles, I should say ponds, are the borrow pits for building all these mounds, but they're not. They don't come close to providing nearly enough material for these mounds. It's kind of
right,
like all the copper.
nor the right color material either.
Correct. It's not the right material, and there's not nearly enough of it. But the pond played a different story. They played with aquaculture to a great degree.
So
Right.
the soil would be brought in canoes by the river?
Well,
Presumably, yeah.
presumably canoes or on rafts, and I mean they had to float it in. I guess since it's next to the Mississippi River, it had to be brought in somehow. So the I guess the easiest way would be by boat or canoe or raft, and rather than trucking it in, I mean they could haul it in on their backs, but that would be a lot more labor intensive than floating it in on a raft.
Yeah,
And
I'd be looking for evidence of a canal to the river.
and yeah, and there was a lot of canal evidence that had been found on site coming from the Mississippi River. There were many canals built from the Mississippi.
There is a natural creek, but it's not right up against Monk's Mound. It's kind of a quarter of a mile away.
Right, it's a little ways away, but it's
So
but there's evidence that the whole city was surrounded by 4 palisade or stockade made of logs, and those were in the shape of rafts. I mean, basically, they probably reused the rafts that they brought the soil in on to build these palisade walls.
But there were also wood hinges. Sorry, I don't want to distract you from your presentation. It's all a great material, but the wood hinges are important.
Yeah, wood hinges are important because they were also almost identical to the wood hinge in Europe, and I'll get to that as well.
Yep.
But these are some of the engraved tablets that were found on and around Monk's Mound. They had 2 Birdman tablets. This one was found by, I think, Moorhead back in 1921. And then this one's at the Peabody Museum. This duck with a snake wrapping around its neck. And it's amazing artistically. And then the
probably
famous
something someone saw and couldn't forget. Snake curled around the duck's neck.
Right. And cross-hatching was prevalent on the opposite side of this tablet has cross-hatching on one side and the Birdman on the other. And then this is called the Ramey Pete tablet, which apparently are decapitated heads with notched necks and just horseshoe shape from the mouth. They have beaded forelocks showing in like a painted pole in 4 quadrants. This apparently snapped in half. And then there were these small dogs up here that had been found as well.
Is Cahokia known for any sacrifices?
Well, there's a theory that the sacrifices were found in Mound 72, but that's because it was dug up, and these were assumed to be sacrifices because they were found in a pit, all buried together. And
Could be a battle too. So.
it could be a battle too, right? That's what I was getting at. Is it's unknown for certain that there are sacrifices that could have been buried after a battle, but the preservation.
But there were a couple unique features about those skeletons.
Yeah, some of them they said that they saw the finger bones like digging into the soil, like as if they had been buried alive. But that's hard to prove, And there's also some of the skeletons. They had the beaded burial, which was 2, I guess a male and a female, that were on a shell wampum bead cloak in the shape of a falcon. And one was facing up, one was facing down. They initially said there were 2 males, but then they changed that story and they said, oh, actually it was a male and female. The male facing up, the female facing down, underneath the beaded cloak made of wampum belt beads. And these, that was the central feature. There were a lot of other things found in the mound, including chunky stones. There were piles of arrowheads, incredibly elaborate grave goods.
There was a leaf blade about this big, and it was obsidian.
A what, Rick?
A leaf blade.
A leaf blade.
Most people would have considered it a core, but I think it was intentionally just that big.
And this is a close-up of the Ramey Pete tablet. The bird on one side, this is the reverse on top, and then the human heads on the bottom. The bird looks like it could be a pileated woodpecker or possibly ivory-billed. But it kind of has that look to it. And pileated woodpeckers were used on Onioto and Osage artifacts as well. The speech scroll coming out of its mouth is also on the Whetstone tablet. A very similar depiction of what looks like a pileated woodpecker. And here's the Whetstone tablet showing the pileated woodpecker up here at the top. And the speech scroll, in this case, forms a tornado or a whirlpool on the obverse, and then the reverse has these hands reaching out. Just amazing iconography and symbolism here.
And has anyone studied this?
Yes, I mean this has been it's been shown to the Koki Archaeological Society. They said they thought this was a bison image in the middle. Somehow they saw a bison here. I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but regardless, they say it's very important symbolically, and apparently that this face again looks a lot like the head on the Ramey Pete tablet. The eyes and the face similarity there, and a lot of I mean this was recommended to study by the head archaeologist at Cahokia, Bill Eiseminger, and I mean they're well aware of this tablet in particular is just incredible with all the symbols and everything going on with it. And at Cahokia we're talking about the Woodhenge. This next one shows the comparison of Woodhenge and Stonehenge in Europe with the Woodhenge at Cahokia. Well, they had the same number of rings. The plane of the rings at the Woodhenge in Europe and the one at Cahokia were the same. And they also found beakers. A beaker in the same form of the beaker culture in Europe was found in Cahokia Mounds at feature 309 with the same exact symbolism. I mean, this angle representing the solstice angle comes off the center of the rings of posts, and so it's apparently a solar calendar at a minimum used to track the angle of the sun rising. And the way it was built, it was directly to the west of Monk's Mound, so the post is aligned with the equinox, and the solstices are also aligned with other mounds that are prominently built on the site. And so these astronomical angles, the solstice, the maximum lunar declination, and minimum lunar declination, are all important on the site. It was they call it astronomical angles that were built into the site configuration, the layout, and the plan of the city. The Mount 72 was actually at the lunar declination from the Woodhenge, so that was apparently a lunar mound. And even Cahokia Points themselves, well, they're made at the angle of maximum lunar declination at midwinter. And in fact, the average angle is 27.1 degree of all the Cahokia Points that were measured. For 92 points, it's almost identical to the angle of the maximum lunar declination in midwinter. So that's another interesting purpose that, hey, they were manufacturing these and they matched the lunar declination.
Is this found in anywhere else?
It's a Cahokia style. I mean, it's like their signature, their signature style at Cahokia. So it was found at Mount 72 at Cahokia, which is the lunar mound, a line from the Woodhenge, and that particular angle and that particular style was found in the most quantity in that mound.
Is it found anywhere else in the world with this same angle and aspect?
Same design? No. The angle, yes. The design, no.
Okay.
Right. No, it's like the signature Cahokia style. It's like that's what they did. That this was defined as Cahokia style, and they pretty much, they may have been a tribute point, or something like a sacred angle that they were made precisely at that angle.
Yeah, I don't think they ever used them for hunting or warfare, for that matter. I could be completely wrong. But
Too brittle?
Well, they made these incredibly thin. I mean, it's like paper thin, and they coated it with red ochre. You can kind of see the reddish ochre coating and these notches. I mean, it was like they made these like literally so thin that it wasn't for hunting. I mean, it wasn't for something they would go kill an animal with. This was like a sacred relic. And even the Birdman tablet, well, look at the angles on the wing. They match as well. The solstice and maximum and minimum lunar angle are matching these lines on the wing of the Birdman tablet.
Is this academically recognized or not?
Yes, Al Feng is the professor of archaeology at Illinois State University, and he did this thing. He studied this, and he discovered the same thing, that these were the angles that matched the solstice, and they matched these alignments. Like he discovered this independently from what I was doing, and sent me his research. And he's like, "Wow, we both came to this conclusion this different ways, but we found that these are actually real alignments, and apparently they were made in the art, that the natives used, and so they were thinking about these things and encoding them in their art." And one of the amazing things that I found at Cahokia was a shark's tooth club. This is a personal find. In 2007, I was helping the Boy Scouts out because they asked me to come in as a volunteer and help out. And this in particular shows the shark's tooth club that I found. The shark's tooth was made out of chert and it had been embedded in a maplewood club. This is a replica of it that's on display at the Gilcrease Mountain Museum in Oklahoma currently, and it had a copper cap on the base of it. The rest of these points were found by Gregory Perino back in 1956, and he just happened to leave one behind in the mound, and this one was the one I found remaining. And so this is about the size of a tennis club. I mean, or a tennis racket. I mean, it's a big artifact. And this one over here on the left, well, that's what they used in Polynesia. So the Polynesians had similar type of things, but they used real shark's teeth, and they embedded the shark's teeth in their club. So it kind of shows the connection between Polynesia and Cahokia.
Well, the Aztec had a version too. It was pretty similar.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but the ones in Cahokia are not shark's tooth? Or
These
just
are
look
made,
like?
they're made to look like shark's teeth, but they're made out of chert. They're called like imitation shark's teeth, but they napped these like the arrowheads, out of chert, but they made it look like a shark's tooth.
Man, it's just about as deadly.
Yeah, they're very sharp, very thin too. I mean, these are paper thin.
And if you looked at that Cahokia arrowhead, quote unquote arrowhead, that serrated edge is a whole lot like a shark's tooth.
Yes.
Yeah, the serrated edge is very similar, and and this one in particular, well, it was about 23 centimeters down in Mount 34, and this was the place that we knew Gregory Perino's excavations were held at, and the goal was to go through his backfill, and basically he had left us behind in the backfill of the mound and reburied it 23 centimeters deep, and it had just been had been left there, in from his work, because I guess back in the 1950s he just was in a hurry, and I guess he didn't recover it all, but he found the other ones, and today this is like just an exotic artifact, and these are very rare. I mean, that's the only place in the country I know of that shark's tooth clubs have been found. And these are all the crosshatch tablets that I found from Cahokia or researched from Cahokia. I mean, a lot of these are from the Illinois State Museum and had been dug up around the site. You can see the abundance of crosshatching, and this is what really led me to research cross-hatching and the symbolism, the meaning, the importance of it, because apparently these were all from mounds. I mean, these artifacts were dug out of mounds, and it made me realize that cross-hatching, if they did this and put it in a mound, it must have been important to them. The people thought it was symbolically important, and so I've come to realize that this is a symbol of power and heritage, because I mean, this is apparently a female figurine with cross hatching on the abdomen. I mean, I think what they're showing here is like ancestry or heritage. I think these represent the ancestry and the ties to genetics and heritage. Alternatively, archaeologists have identified it as a cross-hatching representing snakeskin, like snakes shedding their skin, or the scales of a snake in some cases, and the renewal of life from death, the snake shedding its skin and then going on living. So, kind of interesting. There's several different interpretations of what that means. And some of them have squared hatching and some have diagonal hatching. This one is a pyramid shape, and it was found near Monk's Mound as well. And on the other side, it has a Greek letter omega engraved on the other side of it.
Purely by accident, I'm sure.
And this is a tablet that was found by Mary Matthews about 20 miles south of Cahokia Mounds, and it has the cross hatching and a shape of a falcon. I mean, very very much like an avian or bird shape, like a falcon claws down here and the bird beak up here. This cross hatching prevalently engraved on the side, and it has a single engraved line all the way around the outside edge of it. The engraved line encircles the tablet, and on both sides it has the cross hatching as well. Well, this was found at the Fanai site, and Fanai site was where the Cassie Schaefer tablet was found nearby as well. And it had a human head made of pottery, found directly above it. One side has the cross hatching, the other side has the Thunderbird or Birdman motif, and this diagonal, I guess it's a nested chevron type of motif coming across the top, or feather-like motif. Some people call it a symbol of pine or an evergreen branch. But
Pine
it's
cone.
yeah, pine cone, and then these nested chevrons down here as well. But this tablet was donated to Cahokia by Liz Castley, with the head, and the head was found, like I say, directly above it. I mean, they were found side by side, so it looks like this is a heavy engraved line where the head would have been cut off or decapitated, and then the head was found above it. So I think it's like a piece that goes together, and they're symbolically supposed to stay together. And this has been donated to the Cahokia Mounds. It's going to be on display there as well when the Cahokia Mounds opens up. And here's where Liz Cassie showed me where she found it, in this field right in front of, this used to be Schaefer's property, because that's how it got the name Castley Schaefer tablet. It was in this field, just where that red dot is at, in front of his property. This field used to have mounds in it, and it was covered in artifacts. I mean, just completely covered in pottery. There were hoe blades. There were all periods of time represented as well: archaic, woodland, and Mississippian artifacts. And this is Liz Castley showing me where she found that Birdman tablet. And this is how they look, the two side by side with the head, and the head has this like a mohawk type of design on the top of it, a top knot type of headdress, and apparently that nose of aquiline shaped nose and the eyes engraved with an open mouth as well. And so that's a really interesting artifact.
And both sides are opened.
What?
Both eyes are opened.
Both eyes,
Both
yeah,
eyes are open.
yeah, that's correct.
Because I learned this week from Gary Meyer that there is a lot of representations of one eye open and one eye closed, which I interpreted as being someone that not only looks the physical, but it only sees but it also sees the spiritual within.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting. The eyes are somewhat different. I mean, one of them has this notch, and then the other is kind of just a depression or hole. I mean, they are somewhat different on the two sides. So that could be a representation of one eye open, one eye closed. But that's interesting. And so this is a picture of Liz Cassidy showing the donation of the artifact to the site. Liz Cassidy also found discoidals with eyes on an eye engraved on the middle of it. Um, Really interesting. And here's another, I guess, interpretation of the symbolism on the tablet. It could be the symbol of Aquarius and Capricornus with the lunar path, or the lunar orbit engraved as well, because this green line is from a software program, and the line engraved on the tablet correlates well with the lunar path as it goes across the orbit, as it orbits across the Aquarius and Capricornus constellations in the sky.
And they have names for these constellations, so we know that they were aware of them.
Well, they do. I mean, look, I did research on whether the Aquarius and Capricornus were the name of the constellations.
Yeah, they probably didn't call them the same thing.
They may have had a different name, right? And just not necessarily the same name, but they knew about that area of the sky, and they. I mean, I'm sure they may have used that similar symbolism on this
They had
tablet.
their own zodiac. Pretty much every culture developed their own zodiac, and that is ignored with Native Americans. But
Sure. And how many
how many districts or zones of the zodiac?
Yes. Yeah.
Depends on the tribe, either 12 or 13. The Zuni
12 or
claims
13. Okay.
And so this next one is the Quincy Museum tablet, which I showed earlier that this was also found on Monk's Mound, and it says, the sticker says, "I found May 15th, 1921, west of Monk's Mound in St. Clair County, Illinois." And again, it has the really interesting similarity to the Birdman tablet, and this is my idea of what it would have looked like when it was fully completed, and apparently it had been broken in half, and I think it'd be interesting to recover the rest of it, but the part that's existent now is the part shown on the bottom. And one of the really interesting things is this could be like a snake, fangs up here, and like the snake in eating or biting the birdman, in like on that depiction of a duck with a snake biting its neck, wrapping around it. It kind of ties in well with that, and the claws down here with the cross hatching. So this is just a really interesting depiction in conjunction with the birdman. It seems to have the same type of angles and the same type of symbolism. And then a comparison with the Aquila constellation. Well, this is the depiction of an eagle swooping down to grasp a person that's running away. And it seemed to correlate as well, like the depiction of an eagle swooping down. If this is ancestry or heritage, well, the eagle grasping the people down here. And the overall city of Kokia had this shape overall, the diamond shape, and this is like the causeway that came into the main city of Kokia. It had an overall diamond shape like this. So even though the city was about 5 miles long, and that it did have a central causeway that went up to Monk's Mound, and it had the same diamond shape as Aquila.
And the causeway was also on the vertex, on the.
Yes. Yes, the causeway was also on the vertex leading up to right here where Mount 72 was, where they had all of the lunar symbolism, and that's where those burials were. Over here would be where the Woodhenge is located, and Monk's Mound would be right in the middle. And then on the other side of this tablet, there was a circle and possibly representing the moon. So a combination of the two being the sun and the moon. It's really interesting. And one of the great things about Cahokia, they found silk bug or silkworm effigy, complete with the spots that silkworms have. They also found silk cocoons at Cahokia that were found by Sutter on Monk's Mound or near Monk's Mound, and they literally dug these up in some way. They were preserved, and they had been sent to the local museum in Madison County, and so they had silkworms, silk cocoon or silkworm effigies made of stone, and so there's a good evidence or good possibility that the Silk Road went to Cahokia Mounds as well.
So wasn't at this time silk still a Chinese secret?
Yes.
Right? They say it's a Chinese secret that, and no one acknowledges the Silk Road went to Cahokia. I mean, it's not officially acknowledged, but here's evidence to show that they had silkworms.
And mulberry is one of the most. Let's see. What would the right word be? Productive trees.
Yeah. Mulberry trees, and they found mulberry trees around Cahokia. They were reported living there and had silkworms in the 1700s when the first French showed up. So, mulberry trees were prevalent at Cahokia. And
Okay. My question is the silkworm native to that area too?
No,
It had to be
it's
brought.
not. There's a tent worm, but it's not a silkworm, and it is distinctively different both in its form and, well, its color, a whole bunch of other stuff.
So it had to be brought from China.
Correct.
yeah, so it's really interesting that, hey, I mean, we have a silkworm effigy. They labeled it anthropomorphic bug cast because they didn't want to say it was a silkworm, but it's very obvious that it's a silkworm because it has the same spots silkworm have, the same face and the same shape of a body, a segmented body. They had silkworm cocoons. I mean, the evidence is just there for silkworms being prevalent and existent at Cahokia. At the same time, they were making effigies. I think it must have been important to their culture, and
Well, at least for some period of time.
But there is no silk cloth found anywhere.
Not yet.
well, not yet, right? I mean, but they did describe when the French came through, they described silkworms being found there, and they also described the Native Americans making silk. So it was in production in the 1700s.
Late
Yeah.
1600s, actually, when that
Yeah.
report.
That's right. In late 1600s, LePage Duprat described it in his journals. I think there's additional journals that describe silk being made by Native Americans. So they had the knowledge of how to make silk.
Yeah, but he didn't describe the procedure. He
Right.
said that they had it, they produced it there, but he did not describe the procedure. I'm guessing they kept it from him.
Right.
And how is it that the cocoons survived 400 years?
That I don't know.
Silk-
I mean, it could
Silk
have,
is an amazing material.
yeah, it says, I mean, they must have been preserved somehow because here they are, a picture of the silkworm cocoons. And I mean, if they were in some kind of a pottery vessel that was sealed off from the weather, it could. I
Well,
mean,
we can do a comparison with the silk that was found in a burial mound in Norway. And we have a date for the burial, and we have the silk that came out of the burial. And they didn't do anything to it, dye it, and weave it into a piece of cloth. And it's 1,400 years old. So,
1400?
almost 1,400 years old.
And so, how is
Now
it not
let's
seen as?
let's think about that for just a moment. How did Chinese silk get to Norway in well, in that case, 7th century AD?
Yeah, how did it get there? I mean, they
So,
must have traveled there.
is this one of those things that they just put the label of anomaly and it's no longer
Yeah, they
mentioned,
don't
or is
address it. They just know that it is silk and it came out of that burial mound. It's actually in the can't remember the name of that museum, Olmsburg Museum,
yeah,
the Viking
someone
ship museum, basically.
someone went by land to China and brought these things, or someone came from China and brought these things by land?
Yeah, 600, 700 years before Marco Polo did.
And one of the things that would be really interesting is to test the silk cocoons here, test it, find out how old it is. You know, there are ways to test silk and date the manufacturer age. You know, the age of the silk.
Yeah,
Uh,
and it wouldn't take much of it either to do a C14. But there are other ways, like you said. Also, if it were dyed as a fabric, there are ways to test that as well. But for the cocoon, it's just raw material.
right.
And the cocoon is biological material, correct?
Yes.
Yep,
So I'm looking
it's
at
not
it,
like
and
a
they look.
hermit crab. Well,
Hmm,
by the way, that most of that is biological material as well.
it's like they look pristine.
Oh, those are effigies. The white things,
Hmm.
those
These
are
are
stone.
no, they're real. I mean, these are real silkworm cocoons.
Are they?
Yeah, these are silkworm cocoons. I mean, they're the actual
What's the
cocoon.
brown thing?
The brown thing is stone. This is stone over here.
That's the effigy stone.
Yeah, this is the effigy stone. These are actual silkworm cocoons, like
They're big.
made of silk. This effigy over here in the brown and black stone, that's like a silkworm effigy. I mean, it's literally made of stone. But these are cocoons made of silk. You know, silkworm
It's
cocoons.
two different images, not in scale with one another. There's just two different images.
Right, they're just side by side to show a comparison. And the theory of silk getting to Cahokia, I mean, it's amazing to put Cahokia on the Silk Road and to link it to the Chinese. Um, that there's good evidence that the Chinese were there at least in the 1400s.
Early 1400s.
Yeah, so possibly they brought the silk at that time.
I'm sure that people from the tridactyl community hasn't seen that effigy, because if they did, they were using it to speak about the larvae in the tridactyl. But that's a completely different subject. Just a thought. Just a thought.
But yeah, that's one thing that Rick helped me out with back then, even, and really appreciate Rick's help on this. And this is I had been able to just show this to the Houston Gem and Mineral Society, Clear Lake Gem and Mineral Society, even the Cahokia Mounds Archaeological Society. And Pete Bostrom gave me permission to use these photos as well that he had taken.
Very good of them. Thank you for that.
So thanks. Yeah, I appreciate
Indeed.
Thank you, Rick.
Thanks. And it's been a long time since I saw this, but thank you.
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Rick, any news on Lost America?
Yes, actually, quite a bit. Uh, let's see. We're finishing up episode 12. I shouldn't say we because I haven't done anything for this one at all.
Just a second, Vince. Can you share the screen of Lost American Patreon so people can have an idea?
Um, yeah, okay, just a second. I'll try to pull that up. Just a
Just
second.
write Lost America Patreon and it appears immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have all but finished up 12 episodes, um, and they're all pretty much available or soon will be. We're also planning a logistics nightmare, I guess, of how to deliver a whole bunch of hard copy stuff as well as a whole bunch of soft copy stuff through Patreon or in association with our Patreon show link. And also doing in-person stuff. So it's going to get really interesting, probably really involved. Uh, but I'm up for it. Going to have a motorhome on the road with Lost America. What was that there? Oh yeah, that's the page.
Yeah,
So
this
what?
is exciting. All the recent posts and the collections, these videos are available on here with previews.
And this is episode 11 already on Patreon?
I don't know. I can't see it well enough
Because
to tell.
I shared it for free for a couple of days on X.
It says, yes, season 1, episode 11, I think is what that said. So we're putting up we also have a bunch of free stuff we're going to offer, just free downloads. One of them is the Army manual on how to use the heliograph. And it's not a short or quick read, to be honest. It's a fairly complex system. Did it the hard way.
I really, yeah, I really enjoy this show, and especially all the info. I mean, it's packed with information. It's amazing to watch and learn a lot from.
And with people
We aim to please.
people that
Family friendly edutainment.
Yes.
you won't find in any other documentaries. It's just how many of these people have this vast amount of knowledge, this decades and decades of research, and they just have no exposition at all, and they're getting old, and that information is about to disappear with them, and it's just a shame. So it's a treasure to have this series that records so many of these people and what they have to say about the past.
Well, you're right in the middle of some of these people that have to be
I am. I am.
preserved. At least their knowledge has to be preserved. And
Not,
we have a couple more.
not
The
on,
show has a couple more episodes, uh, including people up there in Wisconsin.
All right, so I encourage everybody to join for free. Patreon.com, CW Lost America is the website.
And eventually it will be a paid site for some of the materials, but it's very reasonably priced.
well, I have my subscription. I think it's six euros a month or something like that. So it's not that expensive,
No, it's not terribly expensive.
and it's well
Expensive.
worth it.
Inexpensive is not necessarily free.
Sure. And
We
and
are
I
doing
think
some free content.
and I think people understand that this involves high costs because it involves traveling, filming crew. This is not filmed with a phone. It's filmed with professional cameras, and I saw it myself. People have to walk hours and hours with a crane on their back to sustain the camera, and it's hard work. So
The camera, the editing, and all the post production is top notch.
so that's why we support and really appreciate the work from Rick and Chris and several others that made this series possible, and it's a lot of episodes to come still from what I think I know
Yes.
about it.
Well, what you think you know is pretty close to what I think I know, except that I've been along on more of the trips than you have. Uh,
Yes.
I think right now we're somewhere around 25 different states, 130 different sites, maybe more than that by now.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, lots and lots of material.
Some of my favorites. We'll discuss that in little bits and pieces as we go
Sure.
forward with the show. But I'll just tell some of the folks right up front. A couple of my favorites have been in museums with pieces that have been declared frauds, and I found no evidence that supports that declaration. Oh wait, Vince was along on one of those trips. He set it up.
Yes, I'm so excited to see that episode, the episode at Valentine Museum.
Yeah.
This week, the Valentine Museum had a special presentation on controversy, and they
How
had,
ironic.
yeah, it's ironic, they had stated they're going to have three speakers coming in and talking about controversy. And so I sent them the info on the Valentine tablets, the Mount Pishka tablets, and I asked them, are they going to cover any of this regarding Mount Pishka and the controversy associated with it? And guess what? They didn't respond. Just no, just no
Yeah,
response at all.
ignore it; it'll go away.
Is
Yeah,
that guy again? Don't answer him.
it's
Well,
like
that's
they,
the way they feel about me, Glenn Beck, Glenn Black Laboratory at IU. Sorry, Glenn. Didn't mean to confuse you with the guy.
Well,
yeah, they,
I remember seeing part of a video where you are in a museum. So you've been with these people explaining these tablets and some of what they believe it's their meaning and their age and their source and so on and so forth, and very good evidence from all sides. And then you go into the actual museum and there is this lady that's very politely explaining. She's impeccable. She accompanied you, she was explaining all very politely. And then we get to these three pieces. The one that is the looks like a coffin, and you open it and has
Uh huh.
a statue. I can't remember the name of the tablets now, but and you are with Chris as she's saying this is complete rubbish. It's just a story made up, and this guy said he found it. He completely fabricated. We have
Yeah.
it all
The
sorted
Newark
out.
always goes, yeah. Right. But that's the story she was told. She is not the archaeologist.
Sure.
She was a she was a curator, and she's conveying the information that has been provided to the museum regarding this object. And she has no desire to question what she's been told about.
Sure. Not is her job to do so.
There are other curators, managers, etc., who are more malleable regarding the background of some of the objects. Particularly
Yes.
when I start and list all the evidence.
I also saw you in a museum with this lady, and she was talking about these tablets, and you are providing her. Yeah, but it's not exactly like that. It was the year so, and it was in this place, and so on and so forth. And the only thing she tells you, and correctly, is if you have evidence, please provide them. If you have a different narrative, please write it down. But she says, I'm not the archaeologist. I'm just
Right.
telling you what. But if you know different, please present your case,
Yeah.
which is not easy to
Yeah.
do. But
No, especially when you're just out there in the cold, access to nothing. Uh, I've been in a lot of museums in my time, and I don't go in with a laptop in my hand usually. But the people who work there are kind, and uh, like people usually. If they don't like people, they don't belong there.
Sure.
Just saying. They belong on the night guard force. Not at the museum. I'm alluding to a movie. Never mind.
But yeah, one of the interesting things about the trade routes at Cahokia, the trade included things like copper. I mean, they found a lot of copper at Cahokia, and it was sourced to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. They found this is 683 miles they would have had to travel down the Mississippi River, and the age date was about 5,500 to 3,500 years ago. They also found the shark's teeth effigy that we talked about. Well, if you look at the distance to Polynesia, that's halfway around the world. We're talking here. I mean, the concept of the shark's tooth effigy would have been at least to the Gulf of Mexico to get there. That's 800 miles away.
Then
Mica.
you have the silk.
Well,
That
not
would literally
necessarily.
be
Actually, they've caught bull sharks right there in the Mississippi River.
yeah.
Well, that's true, but not great white sharks.
No,
And
not great whites. And those teeth on the Polynesian paddle are great whites or makos.
Well,
and
it
Mike.
has to be a very set of brave men to try and kill a great white, because I guess it's not an easy thing to do.
Well, right, that would be difficult for a fisherman.
On a canoe, it's something that.
But at Cahokia, they found mica in great quantities too. There were big piles of mica in
Yeah,
Mount 72.
it
This
wasn't
mica,
even separated. It was still in chunks. But
right?
also Yellowstone obsidian and Mount Rainier obsidian
Yeah,
at Cahokia. And
and
Mount Rainier is on the coast of Washington State. Cardiff.
yeah, obsidian. There were paleo scrapers made out of obsidian found at Cahokia. There was obsidian blades found in Mount 72. So they had a lot of obsidian use. Um, they
Just a
found
few traces of silver ornamentation. They sourced the silver at Nova Scotia.
they found pumice. I mean, there was large quantities of pumice there as well, and they would use the pumice and make pottery out of it, like literally make bowls and things out of floating rock pumice. And oftentimes, archaeologists would find the pumice pottery, and they called it clinkers because it would float up in their buckets and clink against the edge of the float buckets. Pumice is something that would be a volcanic byproduct floating up in the water on the coast, but they found it all the way at Cahokia as well.
But explain to me, how do you make pottery out of? Because I never heard that. So how do you make pottery
Well,
out
they
of
used
pumice?
it. Yeah, they used it as a an additive to the clay, to the slip. It
In
was
powder?
like,
In powder?
yes, they powdered it and added it to the clay.
Okay. Okay. That I
Right,
can do.
pumice. They would grind it up, but it was still floating. I mean, they would grind it, and sometimes they would even use pumice and cut like cups or bowls out of it. But these
Yeah,
fragments,
but it sucks because it doesn't hold water very well.
right, and these fragments. I mean, this is a fairly common thing to find fragments of pumice floating at Cahokia and around the area.
Well, it's
And
not something that you would know of at Cahokia if that's where you grew up, because there are no volcanoes within 1,000 miles.
No.
right, and they're always talking about clinkers. These floating pottery pieces just kept on showing up, and then so it's amazing. And the shells, I mean, the shells itself, these were from whelk shells or mollusks, and they would have had to come from the coast. A lot of times they made them
Conch
out,
shells too.
yeah, conch shells. All the shells were carved into wampum, basically round beads with a hole in the middle, and that's what they made the beaded birdman cloak out of. These would have had to have come from the coast, which is about 844 miles away. And they found amethyst. Amethyst from Ontario, Thunder Bay, was found at Cahokia. That's 648 miles away. So amethyst was a sacred mineral, the purple color of it being sacred, and they would carve it into bird heads or bird effigies.
There were
So
two tiny effigy pieces. Neither one of them was complete, and they were carved from fluorite or fluorspar, called by some. It's called fluorspar by the archaeologists, but it's a soft mineral, a little bit, only a tiny bit harder than talc, and it was all mined from Cave and Rock Park uh, Quadrangle in Illinois, and a little bit in Kentucky, but I'm sure that the part in Cahokia came from Illinois.
so Cahokia was an enormous hub for all sorts of goods from all around the country.
Yeah,
Yes,
not just goods either. It was also a cultural center. I'm confident.
that's
Yeah,
right.
because of the trade. So
Song, dance, religion, clothing, styles, fashion, you name it. It was like the New York and LA of the time.
and
Yeah.
it disappeared. Its culture ceased to exist in what year? Was after the colonization or before that?
It
Well,
was before the European colonization. It was not before the Chinese got there in
right.
1412.
There's evidence that the Chinese came there and they were there in like the early 1400s. But there were some remaining Illinois, and they called them Tamaroa, I think, living in the area even until the 1800s. But I think they were mostly passing through, and they had been, kicked out of the land during the Louisiana Purchase and forcibly
Right,
pushed off the
but the
land.
17th century French talked to the natives in such a way to find out as much about their history as they could, and that history portrayed Cahokia as a capital of a vast empire.
Right. They lived there with the monks, and the Trappist monks there were found on Monk's Mountain up to 1809, and even before that, like LePage du Prat and the Osage tribe. I think that they were passing through. There's evidence that they had a chapel built on or around Monk's Mound. It was called well, it was on the second terrace of Monk's Mound.
Yeah, I can't remember it. I don't remember the name of it. But the Siouan language, the Lakota mostly, and the Osage, who are always at odds with each other, both have laid some claims to that mound complex, but I'm not convinced they had a real ancestry.
They also had faience. I found a faience bead at Cahokia. This is blue tin coating that they would coat their pottery with. Faience was also found in and around the site by archaeologists. Um, Faience blue was an Egyptian custom as well. When they would coat their shabti, Egyptian shabti, and they would use these as tomb figurines. But I found two pieces of this faience at Cahokia, nearby the same place where that Birdman tablet that Liz Castley found was. And one of my goals next to research on is to identify the material composition of the faience and really get a good elemental analysis to determine what exactly it was made of. Because if we can source the material and it's in fact tin, tin comes from Mexico. So Zacatecas, Mexico would be a possible source of tin that could be used in the faience. This could be a connection to the Aztec or Mayans.
Or Belize is another source, but Bolivia is the biggest source.
Yeah, so that's amazing, and if it could be sourced to the origin and match the actual source of the faience, the
Well,
tin.
they are prolific in knowing the provenience of tin. They just don't do that for copper, but for tin and lead, they are prolific on doing that. So it shouldn't
Yeah.
be hard to do.
Yeah, I have a source that can do it non-destructively and test it, and that's what one of my next research projects is really to determine where it's from.
Yeah, you have
Reflected
to
infrared, presumably.
you have to write a project for that, and let's see if it is done.
Yeah, that's that's what I'm planning to do next. It'll be interesting.
Do you want to show us your article on the and then Rick's on the Ferris magazine?
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll do that in just a second here. Um, yeah, the Ferris magazine's amazing. It's so incredibly well written and presented. I'm just really honored to be a part of this printing of the Ferris magazine.
And we now have almost confirmation that we are going physical. So we finally found a place that doesn't require that we take our skin to pay them for every single print. So let's see if this time we can manage it. So I think we can make every except the first one that is 200 pages, but the other two I think we can make them around 17 to $20 more or less. So
Oh, okay. So it's
yeah,
going to be available in print?
yes, we are
Hard
just
copy.
yeah, we're just waiting for the sample and see if the colors are there, if the paper is good, and the pages don't come out. So
Wow, that'll be great.
it will be the same quality as the visual guide for the multiverse books. It's of the Aaron series. What are we looking at?
This is one I had printed up several years ago. It is a compilation of the articles I wrote for Ancient American Magazine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The first 6 articles. Now it's up to what, 26, I think, something like that, 24 maybe.
As I told you, if you want, we can go back to these articles and give them new life and republish them in the magazine.
I think that's a wonderful idea.
And
They're
today
typically about 6 pages each with six
oh, it's no problem.
photographs.
Today I will hold in my hand volume 1, number 1 of the Ancient Wisconsin History magazine.
Cool.
Yeah, so here it is, the Ferris magazine.
1916 or 1917, something like that. Yeah, so your article, I believe it's around page 70,
Yes. See if
and
I
next to yours is Rick's. You are clicking, but
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to get there. Um, it's just let me see here. Okay, there it is. Okay, starting with the Pishka letter. This is amazing. In researching the carved stones found in North Carolina at the National Anthropological Archives, I found an article about the 2,000 examples from Mount Pisgah region of North Carolina in the collection of Me and Valentine. Of interest are the examples described as representations of old world animal forms. I would like to ask if there are any photographs of these objects in the Valentine Museum for researchers. So that was my first introduction to these artifacts, and I had a purpose to determine the provenance, the cross-cultural or intertribal influences, the tribal legends or myths associated with these, as well as the temporal geographical distribution. So this article talks all about it, and I'm so glad to have this published now with the research and being able to answer these questions, the provenance and possible uses, beginning to describe that, hey, there's a connection here with the anomaly of the Sapi people of Western Africa. That they had the same type of figurines made of the same material using enstatite. And this symbolism, they're apparently drawing or depicting the same thing on both sides of the Atlantic.
But the right one is a bear, right?
Yeah, this is the bear, but it's apparently holding a crosshatched figure with both hands and legs touching it. This could be an altar. I think that their chin is resting on the same type of image. So it's like this was a bear, but it's really their clan symbol is the bear. So they're depicting the person or as the bear. And this in Western Africa, they depicted the person, but it's still it's very similar because they both have their chin resting on the altar, like they have shown on this one. And then it's amazing. Egyptian statuary correlates really well. This is 2000 BC time frame, middle period of the Egyptian emperor or tomb. I mean, this is the same depiction of a rhinoceros or hippo on a platform, and they found them in Egypt and also at Mount Pisgah, North Carolina. And this is interesting here that they had apparently Mexican style and Vedic style, and Mayan statuary of the mushrooms. They had similar to Burroughs cave artifacts as well. And the psychedelic images here are tied in really well with depictions representing cosmic or psychedelic experiences that the natives had. And there's a very strong evidence that they either used mushrooms or toads that were associated with psychedelic chemicals. And this depiction of a psychedelic
All the above.
right, correlates really well. There's Tanit. I mean, Tanit is the leader at on the north side of Africa, or North Africa. So Tanit is depicted here in the Atlantic Conference, and here the same image, Tanit in North Carolina.
You see, to my memory, the cross hatching has been shown at least. I don't want to say a wrong number, but I think it's between 28 and 38,000. I believe it's more 28,000 BC in France, in the same natural park, inside a cave where. So the cross hatching is inside the
it's
cave.
old.
Inside the cave, but outside on that forest, it's filled with human modified stones, where you can find all kinds of animals and snakes, and they all have this cross hatching, this aspect. It's highly controversial because I don't know, it's so much in your views that people just don't, the academics don't pay any attention to it. But the whole forest stones are sculpted to look like animals.
Wow. Yeah, the cross hatching was an ancient motif, and it's even used in Blombus Cave, South Africa. They had cross hatching used there as well, and it was from 56,000 BC. They were able to date it with thermoluminescence. So I think it goes way back in time. The use of cross hatching is incredible, and it's connecting images around the world. I mean, these tribal art symbols and the motifs were used around the world through vast early times and across distances that are amazing. Just it was clearly an important symbol, and the fact that we saw it occurs at Cahokia in great abundance, and here at Mount Pishka, and all around the world. I mean, they did this cross hatching on sacred relics, and it's just a really important motif. And that we talked about before, the Smithsonian having these relics from Mount Pishka as well, and this, this has Sequoia syllabary on it. It says the immortals. So Sequoia, I don't think he invented the syllabary, but I think he just documented it, and that would explain that its
So
existence.
when we see, because I think it will appear in a Lost America video. When you are looking at these images, are you in the Smithsonian? Because I thought that you were on Valentine's, but you were on the Smithsonian when you're watching those figurines.
I got the photos from the Smithsonian of their relics, but not at the
The
museum.
video was at the Valentine.
The
Yeah,
video was at the Valentine, okay.
right.
But you show that piece on the video, the snake.
Yeah, I think I had the photo of it. That was after, though. I mean, I think we showed it after we went to the Valentine Museum. We got the photos from the Smithsonian. In Rick's article is really exciting here as well.
You want
Go
to take
ahead and
us
talk
through
about
it, Rick?
There's really not all that much to talk about. I'm describing why I research instead of just believing everything I read. And I know it came out as you wanted 3 pages, but it came out as 2. Um, why I got started researching in earnest and not believing everything I read was because of a place I found in southern Illinois. I'm pretty sure Vince has been there. It's in the town or just outside the town of Equality, Illinois, in Saline County. And it's called Hickory Hill, or it's also called Crenshaw Mansion, or in the 1960s it was called the Old Slave House. And it was open as a tourist attraction under that name. And in the 1840s and 50s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, John Crenshaw, who had that house built in the early 1850s, held the concession to boil all the brine out of the Saline County, Saline River spring, salt springs, and sell that salt. He paid the state of Illinois for that privilege, but he couldn't hire anybody to actually do the work. Because he was making about a third of the money that Illinois used in its treasury as a state by this concession, they paid a lot of attention to what he wanted. So he wanted slaves. It was a free state and they couldn't give him slaves. He said, however, we have lawyers here and we can figure out a way where you don't have to own them. We'll just lease them from Alabama and then you can use them as part of the concession. And that's what they did. So when you read Huckleberry Finn, now you'll know what they were really up against right there, because it was right across the river from where that took place, more or less. So the slaves were hired, I should say, were leased from down south, and they worked this salt pits to harvest the salt from the salt brine. And the legislature of Illinois made this a legal thing during a period of time when one guy by the name of Abraham Lincoln was serving on that legislature. So when I found that out, I bet it is. He was the 16th president. Ran us through a civil war over the basis of slavery, and he ran on the abolitionist ticket after having been okay with having slaves working in a free state as part of, the law. So I never looked at anything in a history book the same way after I made that discovery. I was probably about 14 when I figured this one out. I had always been a Lincoln fan because Lincoln's boyhood home is Dale, Indiana, not very far from here. So he was a local hero.
I wonder if those slaves had a higher rate of trying to escape since they were in a free state than
No,
in other places. No?
no. There were very few instances of them walking away, and very little opportunity for such. However, during that period of time, free blacks in Chicago and Indianapolis and even Philadelphia were being kidnapped off the street and sold in the South.
Oh, really? There were, but colored people or everybody?
Yes, no, free black. If they were black, they could be sold in the South. Even if they claimed to be free, nobody would believe them in Alabama. Or actually, they just didn't care. And the laws against kidnapping were pretty much just non existent. So
Curious.
that's why I researched, and that's what that article is about. However, the old slave house is no longer open as a tourist trap. It's too bad, too. Great story. By the way, it's the first haunted house I was ever in where I convinced it was actually haunted.
You believe that that one is actually haunted?
Yes.
Which is so? Because I didn't got the name at first.
It, in the state of Illinois, they call it either Hickory Hill or the Crenshaw House. But at the time it was open as a tourist trap, it was called the Old Slave House.
You say tourist trap. Is that what you're saying? Trap.
Yes, that's what I'm calling it.
Why is it trap?
Well, it is. They lure you in with a story and then try to sell you whatever they sell. Tourist trap. There's a place in Upper Michigan called the Tourist Trap. We'll go there next fall, probably.
But here's on the screen I have shown here the faience I found at Cahokia, and so it's the blue pottery, and this is a piece of faience. It's coated with tin. I mean, I believe tin was used to make it. The internal surface of this is brown pottery. So I mean, this is just like a veneer or a coating on the outside of brown pottery, and you can see the blue. It almost looks like just a Mayan blue color, and the
But it's
Mayan
fired on like a glaze.
right fired on like a glaze, and just a thin veneer glaze on the top of the
So the archaeologists will tell you that they never made glazed pottery. They made
right.
painted decoration pottery. And
So
yet
if they
there it
didn't,
is.
who did?
Right, who did? I found this with another one that was right next to it, and they had been near the Castley Schaefer tablet, and so it's just incredible. The blue color matches Mayan blue. I have an article also I'd like to share about Mayan blue and the possibility of this being attributed to or associated with Mayan blue. This was a BBC article. I'll try to bring it up here as well. A rare blue that Maya invented. So it says the color survives in the work of 17th century Spanish colonial painters, a symbol of wealth that ultimately doomed the Maya. And in 17th century Europe, Michelangelo and Peter Paul Rubens painted the blue with this pigment using semi-precious lapis lazuli stone mined from Afghanistan and cost more than its weight in gold. So they're saying
Still
Mayan blue,
does.
exploited around the world everything else that had belonged to the people of the New World. And so these artists were using the Mayan blue. Even 1600-year-old murals in the Mayan temples use this blue color.
But it can be sourced there in South America, right?
Yes. And they're saying,
Well, actually, we think it could be sourced in Georgia, the state of Georgia in North
Hmm.
America.
that's right, some of it's in Georgia as well. The Mayan blue was found in Georgia. And they said they might have gone to Georgia to get it, to get to mine the blue used in Mayan murals. And the dyes from the mines in Georgia were a source of the blue color. But they're saying the other things that could be used are like the anil plant, part of the indigo family. There was murex purple as well. I mean, we talked before about purple from murex shells.
But it's not that blue. It doesn't make that blue.
Right, it makes that purple, but not blue. And
What I find it interesting is that it took until 1718 for the Europeans to come up with a blue that was close to that. It still isn't quite. Prussian blue is almost that blue, but not exactly.
And we know the impacts that a single color of a pigment can do in history, because apparently they tell us that Carthage was built on the fact that they could produce this purple color. So
The
that's
entire
how they,
Phoenician Empire.
yeah, how they made their money with this pigment. So,
so yeah, this is the other piece of faience I found. It has the purple color, purple and pinkish, in particular, and possibly from murex purple. So it's really interesting. The blue and the purple, these two beads were found side by side.
It's
Literally
got
within.
rhodium. Do you have a Geiger counter?
No, I don't. I would be interested to
I would
see.
run that one under a Geiger counter.
do you have
Yeah,
this at your home?
yeah, I have this. I have both the blue and purple beads. These are both some of my favorite finds ever, and it would be interesting to test it with a Geiger counter. But this again, it's a veneer on the top of a. This one wasn't
Yep.
cracked in half. The other one was. The blue one was cracked in half. This one is just was right next to it though.
So what do you expect from a stone like this, Rick? What kind of radiation do you expect? Negligible?
Probably alpha, but it might, and it won't show up real well on a Geiger counter anyway. But that red could be from a number of things: chromium, rhodium, nasty things.
Wow.
And you think it's just a byproduct? It has no relevance in terms of history or cultural aspects, the fact that it's radioactive?
Not,
Not that
not
the...
because it's radioactive, because
Sure,
it made
sure.
that color.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's
We
cultural.
we use uranium paint for a long time in the 20th century, in fact.
Well, if I'm recalling what I was taught correctly, even we had glasses that were made of radioactive material,
Yes, and
and
why?
people were using it. So
Yes,
and drinking from them.
and
And
it
not so
hurt
long
no
ago,
one.
like what, 60s, 70s? I don't know.
Right, and it hurt no one.
No one.
One of my
No
favorites.
humans were injured by these
What,
utensils.
Because they
one of my
didn't know. If someone told them, there would be interest.
One of my favorite stories is the story of the creation from the muskrat that dove down in the water and grabbed a small piece of earth and brought it up in its paw, and then from that, the earth formed, and these two pieces of small pottery, I wonder if they could have been used in the retelling of that story among the natives, and actually kept as sacred items or objects that they were using in storytelling about that particular story of Nanabojo and the muskrat that dove down to create the world from after the flood, because the flood was covering the world. All the other animals were said to have tried to get the earth, but they drowned or couldn't get it until the muskrat tried and was successful bringing up these small pieces of earth in its paw.
Those stories, I'm sure they have a very good basis of truth, historical truth somehow. And if you had an Earth that was a complete ball of ice, you can also have an Earth that was a complete ball of water. So,
But no matter where you go, they tell
they tell what?
a similar story, a
Sure.
flood.
Well, I have a collection of, and now there should be around 600 flood myths. And
Yeah.
more than 70% of them are in the same time zone all across the globe. So,
Yep. Usually with a single pair or a few pairs of you.
yeah. Well, if you go to the history of I don't think it's only from the Ho Chunk, but if you go to the history of the massive battle that created the area of what was called Spirit Lake, that then some priest decided to call Devil's Lake,
Devil's
because
Lake. Yeah.
I don't know how we go from Spirit Lake to Devil's Lake, but uh, on that place, I heard two stories. I heard first it was a battle between two tribes that were fighting for some kind of dispute or some battle that they did regularly or some kind of event like that. And other is from the actual forces of the sky and earth fighting and creating all that scenery by the what would be Pulsewater 1b. So around 10,600 years ago, something like that. So that created all of that.
Which,
And
by the way, it avoided being covered by a glacier. That
exactly.
entire lake and the region around it and all the rocks that are still stacked up were not knocked out by a glacier, nor will they stack up by a glacier.
No, no. And there are at least two stones. So you have the leaping frog that I watched and seen, and there are this I don't know how to call it, but the standing stone, the balance stone. I think that's the name they gave it, the balance stone. I don't think a glacier would do any of that. So,
No,
and
no.
it's
Turk's Head
oriented.
is
If
also
it shows directions to points and so. But in the place that I was just a few days ago, because we went to Spirit Lake or Devil's Lake, there is on one of the parks an enormous linear mound that I put my phone on and it goes strictly south. But it's a very big one, and so there was. I asked, is there tests? We know if there is any people buried in this because it's an enormous one. It's longer than the parking lot, and they have never tested. So I wonder if they actually happened a battle there, they would put everybody together because apparently the tribes would never try to be over happy about their victory. They always honored the fallen, and they left amicably because the chief was saying, next time might be my tribe to lose, so I will treat you well in your defeat because next time might be my people. And so I wonder if they did not bury all that people in that gigantic linear mound together, but it has never been
I doubt
tested.
it. I doubt that they would bury both teams in the same spot,
Yes.
uh, unless they were all from the same tribe and it's strictly ritual.
Sure. Because I've heard stories of indigenous peoples being invited to go here or there, and they say, no, I won't go there.
Yeah, I don't trust those people.
Or simply, I'm. It's not my territory, and I will not invade other people's territory. Not even to do research after all these years.
Not sometimes not even if they ask me. But I have been privileged to visit a lot of native lands for their reasons, not mine. And it's an interesting group of people.
Yeah, you know what reminds me? You remember when in Lawrence of Arabia, they're at a well, and the guy that is guiding him starts to run as soon as he saw the plume of sand on the, which just by curiosity, it was done by going around and round with the cars of the production, because they couldn't get the dust enough to go into the air. So they started going with the cars of the production round and round to create that plume of dust that we see in the film. But apart from that, the guy starts fleeing, and the other one, when arrives, Omar Sharif, when arrives, he kills the guy without any guilt, because it's not his well, and he knew that he couldn't drink from that well. It's not his.
Yeah.
And that's more or less what I see here when I see these stories of these people say, no, not even if you ask me, I won't go there because it's not my place to go there. So
Right. So you had places like Kentucky that in the early historical period was considered a hunting ground used by everybody. Nobody lived in Kentucky. And yet, you could go down the rivers and you would see paintings on all the bluffs. You would see mounds and dolmens and all these things, but nobody lived there. And at the conjunction of the Wabash River with the Ohio River, there was a place there that in early historical times was called the dead zone or the empty lands, because nobody lived there. And yet you go up and down through there and you'll find all these mounds, and you'll find all of these cemeteries with thousands and thousands of graves in the cemetery. And the natives will claim those places and honor those dead. Not necessarily they're there, that they are their dead, but they will still honor those dead. You know what I'm saying?
yes, yes.
So those places that, for whatever reason, were not in use, were not in habitation by humans at that period of time, had been inhabited for a very long period of time before that. You got a place in Evansville, near Evansville, Indiana, along the Ohio River, called Angel Mountain. In episode 4, Lost America, the archaeologists will tell you, oh, we think as many as 1,000 people live here. 54 acres of what they claim is the archaeological park, but the entire complex is more like 800 acres with mounds, habitation, farms, etc. Industrial processing places of different kinds. They've all been identified. Most of it is now lost to industry and new housing. But the point being, by 1350, it was empty again. Nobody lived there anymore, for whatever reason. So it was on both sides of the Ohio River along that stretch. It was on both sides of the Wabash River along that stretch. It was along the Green River and a bunch of the rivers in that area. For some reason, it died. Commerce, religion, culture of all kinds. It just disappeared. We don't know why. But at Angel Mounds, a guy by the name of Glenn Black, I mentioned that name earlier. Not Glenn Beck, Glenn Black. He dug there for almost 40 years. He also had 170 other projects going somewhat simultaneously. He had all the money that Eli Lilly would provide him to do these researches. And the Indiana University then claimed all of the artifacts and notes and everything else.
Because we assume very easily that, because archaeologists tell us and historians that there was cities with thousands and thousands of people in South America. But no one talks about these massive cities in North America that would have also thousands and thousands, 10,000, 30,000 people living
Right.
in
Or
that
hundreds
same,
of thousands.
or hundreds of thousands. And so my question is, considering no reports indicate that amount of people, what happened to these vast indigenous nations? What happened to them?
Well, I think they were intentionally killed off when the Europeans arrived. They were told to exterminate the natives, and a lot of them had already been decimated by disease in the 1500s, 1600s, even before that. So I
Even
mean,
before the Spanish got here. Yeah.
but there's evidence that they existed. I mean, I was talking to Rick earlier about this banner stone, and it's from Burrs Hill, in Rhode Island, Warren, Rhode Island. This week, I found out that Dr. Weed is a local historian there in near, or he lives right next to this mound at Burrs Hill. Well, this banner stone was excavated and apparently has iconography, which appears to be language, written language. Apparently, a depiction here that shows symbols with meaning, and it was on a banner stone. This object is drilled through the center, and it has these engravings on it. Well, Burrs Hill was dug up in 1911, and they found hundreds of burials, and some of the burials contained red cloaks and golden weaving. I mean, they actually wove the cloaks with gold thread, and they had gold tapestry in the burials. They also had over 20 tripod vessels made of metal. They excavated all these, and some of the vessels were copper. They had iron and cast iron, and they had apparently symbols on the pottery, and on this banner stone. The tripod vessels disappeared. All but 3 of them disappeared, and now the remaining vessels, in 2017, they buried them in a tomb or a vault at Burrs Hill, and the Native Americans reburied all the remaining artifacts that they could find in this vault as part of NAGPRA. So
And cast it full of concrete.
Yeah, they cast it full of concrete. They reburied it and covered it up, and it's in concrete now. It's like just completely unaccessible. There's no explanation other than, hey, this was, NAGPRA doing its thing, and the native tribes. There were 2 tribes associated with this. The tribe that was in charge of this was the one that wanted to rebury these, and the other tribe that was local said, hey, these are our ancestors too. We basically got kicked off the land, and after they were reburied and encased in concrete, the town issued a proclamation saying that no, these were in fact the artifacts from their ancestors as well. And so they acknowledged it, they acknowledged it in their proclamation, but by that time all these artifacts had been reburied.
This remind me that I do have an interesting mission for you, but I'll have to give you the exact details. Is that I was informed of a linear mound on an area that has a possible foundation of a stone house that was not indigenous, so made by some culture that used stone to build houses. And on this linear mound, a child found a Norse sword, and the sword was delivered to the chief archaeologist, right? And the chief archaeologist looked at that and said, has to be a fake. None of these people were ever here, so it has to be a fake. So he threw it into the basement of the museum
Oh my
of
gosh.
or the institute. And so when uh, he was asked years after, we want to see the sword. Where is the sword? Oh, it was stored and labeled, so now I have no idea what it is. It's a lost artifact. It's an interesting project for us to follow and see if we can resurface from the museum and see if we can look at this sword properly. That's something that has never been done because it's considered to be impossible to be found where it was found.
Wow. And Dr. Weed had published a lot of information about his research on the site. He said over 70,000 tribes, 70,000 members of the tribe lived there, and the I guess this was through the 1600s and 1700s. The gold threaded red cloaks that they had were found with headdresses in the mound. I mean, it's incredible the amount of wealth and artifacts that were valuable there that had been found, and just not much documentation of this. There's a notebook, I think at Cambridge, but it doesn't really have much value. It doesn't really show any details or anything. And there's one book that was published about this in, I think, 1972. It has pictures of some of these tripod vessels and a description. Um, but that is that those tripod vessels appear to be Chinese in origin. I mean,
That's what I was going to ask you. I
I,
only remember
one of
seeing.
them clearly has dragons on it, right?
yes, that's right, and that's what has really interested me in this. I mean, the fact that hey, these tripod vessels have dragons and Chinese iconography, and the forms are Chinese. I mean, they look like Chinese tripod vessels. So there's really strong evidence there that this was occupied by the Chinese as well, and it would be really interesting if they could be tested, but apparently they disappeared.
But we have images of them.
Yes, there's images in the book published in 1972, and I have that book. I could show it and bring it
Next time.
next time. Yeah.
Yes, and we are right on the cusp. So, any final ideas that you want to share?
Let's see. Yeah, if anybody has something they would like to bring to our attention, please feel free to get a hold of me on X at Rick Silverville or on Facebook, Rick.Osmond, I think it's number 9 or something like that. I'm on there.
Is Lost America already in Facebook and
Yes, there's also a Facebook on Lost America as well as TikTok, Lemonade, and YouTube. So,
Lemonade? I don't know that one.
Lemonade. It is a chat box for TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Sidebar. Anyway,
Vince.
Vince.
Yeah, just it's been great. I have a picture of that large cement crypt that with these artifacts that I wanted to bring up and show.
But I find that funny. Why? Because I hear indigenous people say, "Okay, we will bury it," but they bury it in soil. In this case, it's buried in concrete, which is quite different because it preserves them, doesn't allow the natural decomposition to happen. That's usually what they want to be. The time takes its course, but in concrete, that doesn't happen.
Right, like why would they do this? They buried it in a large cement crypt that will remain buried forever, and from since May 2017. I mean, it's 600 items of extreme cultural significance here that is now just covered up and no longer accessible. And yeah, it's amazing that this happens.
Well, I heard their reasons. I'm not sure if I'm completely on par with all of them.
Well, for almost all those items, it's the second time they've buried them.
Sure.
Yeah, they. I guess I mean it's important to be respectful and everything, and
It's like they were made to be placed on the earth. So it's not
right.
be made to be in a museum or in display. They were made to be placed on the earth as an offering. So, not sure it's always the case, but
Anyway,
yes, it
it
was a
has been
pleasure.
wonderful. It is almost our cutoff time. Thanks
Yeah.
to everybody who has been in the chat. I've been trying to watch it, not as carefully as I
Yeah.
probably should,
Thank you,
because
everyone in the chat.
Vince has kept me entertained very well today. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, it's
As
been
it
fun.
does. So thank you all. Uh, and we'll be back next week. Now we are on Saturdays at 7 Central, 8 Eastern. So I hope to see everybody there again. So a very fun farewell to you all. Thank you very much.
As they say, good luck, have fun, don't die.